What's up, Ragin Nation? How's it going? This is Alex Yu, and you're watching the TF Movie Show. This is just a web series. We're talking about the Transformers live-action movie franchise, episode number 40. And in this episode, I want to talk more about the future of the Transformers live-action movie franchise. In the previous episode, I talked about more details on the Bumblebee Optimus Prime buddy film, as well as a Transformers reboot, which will actually be a Transformers film, much like the tradition of the Michael Bay Transformers films, in the sense that it's a Transformers titled film. Not a Bumblebee film, not an Optimus Prime film. It is the Avengers of the Transformers cinematic universe, if you will. So that's what's happening, but it's going to be rebooted. But what is not happening, at least what is not in the cards anymore, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. We're going to start off with that topic, and then we're going to move on to what we can expect to see in the future films. So first, let's look over at this another interview with Lorenzo Di Bonaventura, the producer. He spoke with Japanese press on The River once again, and he talked about Beast Wars. And he actually discussed specifically the fact that Beast Wars is actually going to be too expensive to make. Based on the translation, it says that a Beast Wars live-action film would cost $450 million. I don't know how they came up with that number, but that's the number he came up with. Now, I'm just curious, is that production plus marketing? Because that's what I would assume, not like just production. That would be insane if it was production and marketing. That would make it like one of the top 5 most expensive films of all time. That would be crazy. So I think that it really is more production plus marketing. That sounds way more reasonable. And he also says that investors would not pay that. And it makes a lot of sense because the Chinese production companies that helped invest into Transformers last night, they were not happy with their return on investment, and therefore they pulled out. And so by investors, I think producer Lorenzo Di Bonaventura means the Chinese investors, or rather new Chinese investors. So because of what happened with the Transformers last night, which was an expensive film to make, they're not ready to invest big on such an expensive Transformers film as of yet, until they start seeing more successes from the previous, from the other films that they have in production right now. And I totally get that. I understand that Transformers last night, you know, it went where it ended up being, but the other films led to the previous films before Transformers last night led to something that sounded promising. You know, 700 million, 800 million, 1.1 and 1.1. So they expected Transformers last night to do another 1.1. It didn't. It did nearly half that. So no, they're not going to invest 450 well, they're not going to invest at all, but like they're not going to invest into a film that costs that much. That would be ridiculous, and that would just be a bad business move. So if Lorenzo, you know, he's a producer, he knows his numbers. If he says that it costs that much to make, I believe him. So, you know, it's a wise move. I'm glad they're not doing that. They shouldn't put all their eggs in one basket and make a Beast Wars films that will be a huge risk. They should make these films that are a lot safer and could guarantee them to get more of their, what is it called? Cut their losses short. You know what I'm saying? So that's what's happening. What's also not happening, as far as I know, is the animated Cybertron Prequel film. That doesn't seem to be happening anymore. It wasn't even discussed in any of the interviews. And what is happening? Well, the Cybertron Prequel, but on Netflix. I think that makes more sense. I think that that is a safe way to go about the film, because after all, they have no idea how a animated Cybertron prequel will be perceived and taken at the box office. That's the most important thing. They know that fans will like it, but will a film like that, which really only caters to the fans, will that be a financially successful film? They don't really know, and they don't want to take that risk. So therefore, they're using the home video, or rather the streaming medium, to distribute that. And I think that's a good film. I mean, I would love to have it on the big screen, But if this is the only way for them to really bring the franchise back in a safe way where they're not not losing so much money, then this might be the better way. And this is information that was found on TFW2005.com, as the writer for the Transformers Netflix series, Brandon Easton, was at TFCon last weekend, and it's a Transformers War for Cybertron Netflix series. So here are the details. I'm gonna read this off TFW, and that was season 1 will consist of 6 episodes. Okay, so they already figured that out. Each episode will have a running time of 22 minutes. Brandon Easton has written over half the season. The series will be directed at older fans of the franchise and will be very dark in tone. The story will feature lasting effects on canon. Animation is taking inspiration from the hit Netflix show Knights of Sidonia, also the same animation studio Polygon Pictures. The show will keep characters true to themselves, and G1 fans will not be disappointed. Mr. Easton believes that War for Cybertron will become the next definitive iteration for the franchise. Hey, I'm really excited about that. This is going to be canon. This is going to be what it is for the digital medium. You know what I'm saying? And this is going to be it. Not whatever was mentioned in the comic books or novels. This series will be it. So therefore, it's kind of like you know how Star Wars has Rebels and Clone Wars. Well, this War for Cybertron series will be that. Be the Clone Wars, but for the Transformers live action franchise. And I'm totally down with that. That means we can get way more. We can get more seasons, more content, instead of taking 2 or 3 years to produce one feature-length movie, like the animated Cybertron prequel. I'm sure there are big stories to be told. And I'd love to see more of that. And when you see more of that, it really makes you appreciate the live action films more, because you understand their backstory is so vast and so rich. So I'm down with this idea. So if this is what they feel is the best way to approach it, then I support it. All right. Now I want to take this moment in the rest of this episode to talk about what we can expect to see in these future films, following that follow-up from Bumblebee. So, like I said, we got the Transformers reboot film, we got the Optimus Prime Bumblebee buddy film, and this is all following up after the success of Bumblebee. Now, Bumblebee was great. I loved it. But what it was essentially was a smaller Transformers film. The smallest Transformers film. The lowest budgeted one, which is totally fine. It ended up being a great film, but it was still the smallest Transformers film. It only featured 4 characters. Well, actually 3 when you really think about it. 2 Decepticons and Bumblebee. And then there was Blitzwing, who died at the beginning. And then there was Optimus and a bunch of other Autobots who had their moment in the first few minutes of the film. But that's it. All right? And it was a very, very small film. So a lot of fans might be thinking, okay, well, it lacked big action. Well, it wasn't that type of film. It didn't need to be, right? So, which is totally fine. But I love the action in Bumblebee. You could actually see what's going on. So, let's kind of take that style of action and make it bigger. And what we have here on this article from Collider is Transformer producer says Bumblebee follows will have a little more Bayhem. Now, don't get it twisted. It doesn't mean that Michael Bay is back. It doesn't mean they're reverting back to their old ways of crappy storytelling and camera work, if you will. Okay, because there's a lot of shaky camera work in Michael Bay's Transformers films, and they don't actually fully capture what is really going on, and that's just his style. But let's just see what he has to say. The audience had asked us several times in different ways. I want to get to know a Transformer better. We did that. In some respects, definitely a tip to what the audience has said to us. The interesting part is when you set out to do something like that, you don't exactly know the ramifications of it. In this case, the ramification of it was, for the people who didn't love the movie, was not enough action. Because you're telling me a more intimate story, therefore you can't. So the criticism we got from fans was like, hey, come on. It was funny. I was just in Japan, and one of the reporters said to me, I love the movie. I love this, and I was very tired of Michael Bay. I said, I've heard this before. And he goes, but you know, after watching this film, I kind of wish I had a little bit more Michael Bay. It was really funny, I said. Listen, I completely understand. I like what Michael does. 2 different films, 2 different attempts. Following that, he says, several lessons have come out of this. One is that we have the freedom to tell almost any story. The other is that how strongly the audience identified with the strength of character and emotion. I know the next Transformer, our attempt anyways, is to sort of do a fusion of Bumblebee and the Bay movies. A little bit more Bayhem, and a little bit more of the character falling in love within the emotional dynamic of the movie. One of the things I want to do, and I hope we pull this off, is we did it with Bumblebee because he's so cute and so accessible, but he can't talk. I think the more human we can make these characters, the more people are going to like them. And I totally get that. It's a much smaller Transformers film. It's budgeted at $130 million, which is still a big budget film, but it's nowhere near as big as Michael Bay's $200 million Explosion Fest. But what Lorenzo Di Bonaventura wants to give us later on is like films with that emotional character accessibility, but also big action. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be Michael Bay's style of filmmaking, which means that it's going to be so chaotic, and then there's going to be scantily clad women and fast cars that move like a car commercial, and you know, just a lot of explosion fest. It doesn't mean that. It just means that there's going to be more action. A lot of people are taking this article in a very negative way, saying that, oh, Bumblebee was good, but now we just want to go back to Michael Bay style. No, it doesn't mean that at all. At least that's how I interpreted that. It just means that what Michael Bay gave us in his films was a lot of action, but it felt like, but you definitely know that it was thin on plot, thin on character development. Now they're going to combine a fusion of the two. More story, more emotional development, and also bigger action. It doesn't mean it's going to have tons and tons of explosions, but imagine if Bumblebee just had one more big action sequence. Imagine if it did that. That's what he's just trying to say. And I'm glad that we're realizing that, because you know, we don't want to always have the same formula. The formula is that you want to make your sequel better than the first one. And if you can't make it better, then at least make it bigger. That way it has something to offer. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's what they intend to do, and that's what they should do. Make the action bigger, but still keep that character dynamics that we definitely loved from Bumblebee. And that's all he's trying to say. Now I want to follow up on this. Transformers to lean into love stories in the future. Whoa. What are you talking about? How? Don't mess with my Transformers, man. Be careful with that. Okay, he says, one of the things I want to see, and I don't know if we'll do this particular thing, but I think we will eventually do a love story between Transformers. What does a love story mean? Definitely not sex. Maybe not even kissing. But the idea that they would have that emotional crush has never really been brought in. That's kind of the direction we're going to try head into, which is to give them them human desires that up until now we haven't seen much of. I think that will change the relationship with the Transformers, so we may do some wild action. We'll do action for sure in the main line, but it's a different kind of attempt. I know we will hold up onto a lot of the lessons from Bumblebee. So, once again, don't interpret this in a crazy way, okay? We're obviously not doing a human love story. We're probably not even doing a Transformers love story, but he wants to create more of that emotional element and create that personal need, that personal wanting of something, and just following like a character arc where you have a character that really has feelings, humanizing them. And that is what makes us fall for these characters. That really makes us feel for these characters. That really makes us connect with these characters and just resonate with them. They resonate with us. You know what I'm saying? And actually, I'm kind of glad that he's realizing this now. After so many Transformers films, after 10 years worth of Transformers films, they were only focused on making it bigger. That's all they were focused on doing. Getting faster cars, making it bigger, how many more Transformers we can add in, and nothing else. They didn't think about trying to give these characters more feelings. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad that Lorenzo Di Bonaventura is actually, thinking about other things. Like, he's thinking outside the box. Because when they were, he was just going along with what Michael Bay wanted. And that is, I'd just like to add these other cars in it. Bugatti Veyron, Lamborghini, Ferrari. I just want to do that, right? And producer was like, says like, hey, you the man. I'll get you whatever you need. You tell me, I'll get it for you. That's a job of the producer. But now, Lorenzo Di Bonaventura, he wants to be more of, he's going to be calling the shots more. After all, Travis Knight's done, Michael Bay's done, so he's the face. And whether you like it or not, he's the one calling the shots. And I like where he's going with this, because humanizing the Transformers makes them more like characters that we can connect with, as opposed to just background characters or characters with just no personality except nothing but one-liners. Because that's what the Transformers were in the previous films. They were just one-liners. They just gave us one-liners. And you can count the amount of lines that they had with two hands. That's it. So, yeah, let's make them have stories, feelings, emotions, and the ability to want, the concept of wanting and needing, and maybe wanting and needing another character. And we kind of explored this in G1. Remember, Springer and RC kind of had a thing going on, and they didn't really do much with that, but still, it was there, and it made you think. It made you think that when RC was in trouble, what was Springer going to do about it? And if Springer was in trouble, what was going through RC's mind? You know what I'm saying? And there was, of course, the dynamic between Elita 1 and Optimus Prime. So, they could do something with that. And I'm fine with it, as long as it doesn't get too awkward. Anyways, what do you guys think about anything that I've talked about? Let me know in the comments section below. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode and you want to see more, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like me on Facebook, The Ragin Nation. Also follow me on Twitter, Ragin Nation. My name is Alex Yu. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Peace.